or before I go into that, we see the platform as having 5 major features. The first of those features is having a live view of your customers. Now, I'm just going to speak a little bit about credit reports and what credit reports has done historically in the past. You would go to a credit bureau, you'd request a credit report, and that credit report would have really key pieces of information that would be valuable to you. One, it would have information on the company, so subsidy information. Who the company is, who the directors are, if they've got any judgments against them, any liquidations, etc. That's one part of it. The second part is you would have trade references, and the third, you would have a bank code. Now, as you guys are probably aware, probably you as well, more so, Vani, just from your experience in the credit spaces, trade references are becoming more and more difficult to get. A lot of companies do not give trade references. They cite POC as an example, and it's a policy of a lot of companies not to provide trade references. And even when you do get trade references, a lot of the time it's generic, or the potential debtor on your side has given you their best references. So all of that information generally, or not all of the information, but it's generally subjective. And then the second is bank codes. Bank codes. 2 of the big banks, FNB and Absa, don't give bank codes anymore. It's just standard banking. Nedbank would still do, and even then, sometimes you've got to jump through hoops to get there. Again, most bank codes generally are always a C, and it doesn't give you much, much indication as to what the propensity or the capacity of the company to pay is.
And I think just to jump in, Vani, was one of the points that you actually raised in our conversation, if I recall correctly, that bank codes was a particular challenge that you guys were facing there.
Yes. Yeah, and with the new POPI Act, obviously, most of the banks are not submitting, like you've just mentioned. It's just Nedbank and Standard Bank that will give us. Otherwise, the customer has to obtain it. And also, the bank codes are only 24 hours anyway. So
absolutely. And look, as you can appreciate, a credit report that you requested a week ago, a month ago, 2 months ago is already out of date, and it doesn't really give you the information that you may necessarily need to make a decision at a point in time. So this is where we believe our platform really does add value to the business, and because we're moving away from the credit reports that you would historically have had to request, and we're moving now to a live platform where that information is live. So this is, the customer section, which I'm going to take you guys through, where you'll find this information. So I'm going to just click. There's 2 places. You can either access it by clicking the view here, or you can click on customers on the left-hand side. And what this does is, just going to hide the menu. This will bring up some of your customers that we've already loaded in as part of your POC. So we've loaded in 341 of your customers. And it's listed here by an alphabetical order and with an account number. It gives you what the current total outstanding is based on the latest aging. And so just give me a second. I'm just trying to share my screen for the team that's sitting here with me. And it gives you what the current credit limit is. And it then would give you, if we're able to work out what a limit recommendation is. I'll take you through that in a bit. You can search for customers. So if you put in, customer name, you'd be able to then search, and that's the way that you'd be able to find it. And then you can kick off a workflow from here as well. I'll take you through what a workflow is in a bit. If you want to look at your customers that we're saying that you can grow, you just click on the view filters, and you can go and you can look at the customers where we're telling you, you could grow this based on our recommendation, or where you should go and reduce, or where you should maintain and do nothing. Any questions on this before I go into a little bit more detail on the customers?
Yes, I just have one on the recommendation. Is there format that you use to determine whether the credit limit needs to be reduced or grown?
Absolutely. So I'll take you through that shortly. So what I'm going to do now, let's take Berry and Bottles Liquor Store as an example. I'm going to click on them. This takes us into the Customer 360 section. Now, what the Customer 360 section is, it's one of the major features we believe. Like I said to you, it's got your live data. And this is updated on a daily basis in terms of subsea information, or in terms of the information and the analytics as information changes or analytics updates. What you've got at the top, again, you've just got the company name, the account number, and some header information. Again, it's the same, what we've seen on the previous screen. What's the credit limit, the total outstanding, the overdue, and what their payment terms are. And if we know who the controller is, based on the data you've given us, it would be listed here. Now, the first tab it takes you to, Ronnie, is and Chris, it's the recommendations tab. First thing that you see is what is the recommendation? So our recommendation is to grow this company or this data from 50,000 to 70,000. Okay, it gives you some other information as well. Basically, what we've already given you, what's the outstanding, the overdue, etc. And to the right, it gives you a limit and utilization forecast. So how much have they used in the past months, and what is their limit, and what we believe they would get to, which is the recommendation. If I scroll down a little further, it's going to give us, a historical trend. So you'd be able to overlay different months or different years and the months as to what has this buyer done over a period of time. So you can look for seasonal trends. You can see, have they grown in recent years? Have they reduced in recent years? So this gives you the snapshot, as to what they've done. Moving on to your question, Ronnie, as to how we calculate the recommendation. There's a couple of things that we do. The first thing that we do is we run this data through a couple of knockout checks. So what is a knockout check? It's basically a check which checks for certain things that's important to you and your business. So for example, are they in business? The business status. If they weren't in business, or maybe it was in deregistration, ARD registration, this would be a big X, and we wouldn't even go any further with a recommendation because one of the knockout checks has been triggered. Now those knockout checks, they can be configured depending on what your requirements are to include certain knockout checks based on the information that we may have in our database.
And sorry, Royal, essentially that is to align it with your current credit policy. So you might have a policy to say that we don't do business with anybody that's got a judgment against them. Or if it is a judgment, how old is the judgment? When was it? Is it material in relation to the credit limit? So all those type of rules we can build into the knockout to say, before we even going to do a recommendation on this particular buyer for you, is that, does he conform to our current credit policy rules?
Okay.
Right. What we also try to do is we also try to calculate what the maximum capacity for this customer is based on their turnover. Now this, we do it if we've got financials on file or they've provided you with financials, or there's a couple of ways that we do this, and we try to estimate the turnover. And this is basically what their capacity, their maximum capacity in the marketplace is, to give you that indication. I think the most important part of this whole section would then be the recommended section. Now we've got what we call an RAF, or risk adjustment framework, which is basically a framework that takes into consideration a couple of things when writing a recommendation. It takes into consideration how much on average this customer is using. Because again, you may have a customer that's got a 1 billion rand credit limit, but they're only using 20,000 rand on any month. It's probably just going and increasing their limit, even if they can, accommodate it, because they're just not going to buy that amount. So that's the first thing that happens, is we go and we see is, what are they utilizing of their current limit, and what is that within the threshold for us to grow them? So in this example is, if they're utilizing on average 70% of their threshold, let's go and look at a review, and let's see if we can grow this customer. And the next thing that we do is that we try to forecast what that could potentially get to. Now, how does that happen? Is, again, I'm going back to the old credit reports, is the trade references of old have been replaced by what we call analytics. Now, we've got two types of analytics. One is on payment risk, and the second is on default risk. And in essence, what this is basically, it's payment risk is the likelihood of you being paid beyond terms. So for example, someone that's a high payment risk is someone that is, more likely to not pay you within the terms of your 30 days. Now, this we get from how they've been trading with you, how, and how this account has expanded with you over a period of time. The default risk is the likelihood of protracted default. So what's the likelihood that this account will go into 90 days, 120 days plus? Now, this takes into consideration various factors. It takes into consideration what they're doing in the marketplace, how they're trading elsewhere, how they're paying elsewhere. It takes into consideration, bank statement, financials, if they have it. All of that information is then encompassed in, these two risk indicators. So not only do we have a view of what this customer is doing with you, but generally how this customer and how customers like this are trading and have been trading in the marketplace, and that's where our analytics comes in. This is quite an important part of where the limit recommendations and this framework gets calculated. So I'm not sure if you have any further questions or comments on these risk scores.
No, not for me.
Great. So the reason why I went to that, it's now based on the framework, we take into consideration what the payment risk is, what the default risk is, and then it tells us, good, this customer is a medium payment risk, which is basically average. They're a reduced default risk. Therefore, let's go and grow them by 40%. And then that's what you're seeing, basically. You're seeing the current credit limit is 50,000, and we're going to go and grow that limit by 40%, and that's where the recommended limit of 70,000 comes in. So that's basically the framework, Vani and Chris. Depending on your requirements and depending on what you need, we can move you over to the option where you can go and adjust these, and you can then say, listen, our risk appetite is a lot greater than this. For example, someone that's a low payment risk and a low default risk, we have to grow them to 100% on the existing limit. So basically double it. So all of this is possible in the system, and we can tailor it for your particular business.
Yeah, and I think just to comment on the way we've done the initial setup, Chris, when we chatted, I did mention obviously that we have 3 separate tiers. Obviously, in terms of the setup, really in terms of doing the demonstration, we've gone with our default tier. But I think definitely, obviously, in terms of working with you guys, we mentioned there would be the capacity to fine tune the specific, at what risk levels, how you would like to, how you'd like to do that calculation, or how you'd like that calculation to be displayed, or how that recommendation would be based on the specific risk profile, and obviously how you'd approach that risk. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask one question. When you're doing these payment risk and default risk, are you looking at what you've got on your database? So you're looking at all your other customers, so to speak. So
Yes,
where are you pulling that information from?
Correct.
So essentially, we are taking, all the information that's currently available out in the market that you used to get into a credit report. We take all that information into considerations. Like, for instance, we'll look at the age of the company. What's the age of the directors? How long have they been there? So what is the age of the directors? How long have they been there? What is the age of the company? How many directors there are? So all of that statutory information that's available in the market gets fed into this model. And we've trained the model to look at specific things to identify, where that risk appetite in the particular sector would be. And that's how we get to the default risk and the payment risk. So it's not only how he behaves with you, it's how he behaves in the market with other people as well. And what is companies typically like this, with the same age, same directors, same turnover, how do they behave in the market? And we've trained our model to come up with a recommendation in terms of where we would place this specific data.
Okay, thank you. And then just one other thing is, does the system, do you have any links with the various liquor authorities to see whether or not the guys have valid liquor licenses?
Yeah, no, unfortunately not.
Currently not, Chris, but I mean, it is something that, we've got a couple of other clients of ours that are also big players in the liquor industry, and, we're also looking at ways that we can accommodate that. Is that something that, would absolutely be a requirement? So for one of our existing customers, I can tell you what we've done is the first question as part of the onboarding process is, do you have a valid liquor license? And then they've got to upload that liquor license and confirm that, it's for that particular address. So that's, one of the ways that we've done that. But they were happy to go that route as long as the liquor license is being provided and the confirmation, that they can check that it is the correct address, it is the same address that's on the liquor license, etc. Would you require any further validation over and above that?
Yeah, because each year you've got to renew your liquor license. So that's always a bit of a mission where you've got to go and check and see, have the guys sent through some payment confirmation that they've paid for their new liquor license or the renewal. So I was just wondering whether or not there is anything in there to prompt that and make sure that the credit controllers go through that process each year.
Yeah, Chris, we are. I mean, that's something that we can build into the workflow to say, you know, it's almost like the review. So you would say to us that we want this liquor license or this account basically to reviewed every 11 months or 12 months or whatever the case may be. And then after that, it will then go and say, you know, so part of that review process will be to go and confirm and get a new liquor license. We are looking at the liquor licensing issue. It's just that the problem, I mean, as you know, there's about 12 different, what do you call it?
The liquor boards, yeah.
And each one of them does it differently, you know, so there's no central bureau or register or something that you can go and check this, but we are seeing if we possibly can do something, because we have identified as a big gap in the market.
Louis, can I just clarify, maybe just make sure that I'm understanding correctly, and also for Chris and James, would it be correct to say that we could build a workflow that would essentially request, the part of that workflow would be a request for a new liquor license on an annual basis, and that we would provide the activity or to do, for example, to pop up on a specific date for a specific debtor to remind the credit manager to actually initiate that workflow and that request.
Yeah, to say that, you know, these are all, so all these liquor licenses, all these customers needs to be reviewed within this month. It'll come up in the beginning of the month to say, these are all the to-dos that you have to do this month. And part of that to-do list could be the liquor licenses that you need to get.
Absolutely. I mean, if we can just show you what that would mean, I'm just jumping a little bit. What we could do is we could set it up that every 12 months. It's got to be a task that's got to come to your team. So, for example, this is the task section where we would push tasks to you. And, you know, the kind of tasks that we would send to you or your team would be, you know, change in business statuses, change in limit recommendations. You know, if there's a default that's been detected, you know, there can also be one where there's a limit review that needs to be done on an annual basis. And for that month, you know, based on the anniversary date, it gets pushed to your team for them to go and now kick off the workflow and to go and request those new details. So, you know, those are things that, you know, we can build into your workflows, you know, to form part of your corporate governance, particularly around the liquor licenses.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. It satisfies me for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to go back to this customer section, just so I can take you through the rest of it. Any other questions in on the recommendation tab before I move on to the others?
Yes. Yes, I just have one question. If you just scroll down a bit, yeah, just hold on. Recommendation limit for existing customer. I think Chris asked the question. There is the data from the industry, but on the section where it says recommended limit for existing customers, is that purely based on how they've behaved on our data book?
So it's both.
It's both, yes.
Both, okay. And then my next question
how they behaved in your debtors book is encompassed in payment risk, and how they behave in the market is encompassed in default risk.
Okay. And then the forecasting period, can that be over a period of 12 months if we choose for that?
We can change it again, just depending on you know what plan you're on. Definitely, it can be tailored for you. You know, just remember though, you know, with the forecasting and the analytics, is, you know, the further on that you forecast, the more data you need, as I'm sure you can appreciate. And so that's just something that if we do go that route of forecasting for a 12-month period, that, you know, we just have to work with you to build that out.
Yeah, and the 12-month period can be purely based on our data. I'm not asking for external data, but it's something that we actually look at because of the highs and lows during the 12-month period. So we need to see how they function.
I suppose that's why also having this historical, you know, trend would also be good for you guys, because in your industry you probably have big seasonal trends. Come November, December, Jan, you see spikes. and then it drops off in certain parts of the year as well. So definitely something that we can look at building in for you guys.
And also the other benefit in terms of the system is that, so when you guys, normally when you have price increases, the guys do a lot of buy-in and they tend to go over the limits. But if you then go into a specific customer, you see that we're recommending that the guy can grow, he's on a low payment risk, low default risk, then, then it's an easier decision to make to say whether I should release the order or not. And the other benefit that the system does is that it always shows you the group limit. So I know in your industry, you've got blue bottle bottle store, but there's like 20 different branches for them, although it's one legal entity. We will show you always the risk associated with that legal entity. So I don't know if you just want to show them into the trading history.
No, but Blue Bottle's not one legal entity. They're individual.
I'm just using it as an example, so.
But I think it would go back to the conversation that we had, obviously, in terms of where there are sub accounts, which is part of a big part of it. Obviously, there are multiple accounts. We do look at the group account and the group exposure in terms of those recommendations.
Yeah, absolutely. So if there were multiple accounts in a particular group, you'd see them listed here, and it will show you all of the different accounts. You'll be able to click on it and go into that one. And then it will also show you for this particular account all of the aging that we've got. So not only the graphs and the visual representation, but you'll also be able to go and see the detailed aging for those at any particular period in time, if we have the data from it.
Okay.
Yeah. And then lastly, it's the external information section, which now just speaks to the rest of the credit report that I spoke about earlier on, which is your SIPC and regulatory information. So this, we've got a live feed into SIPC's database. It gets updated on a daily basis, which checks what the company status is, registration number. It goes and it checks who the directors are. It looks into the other OBIs, and then very importantly is we've got judgments and liquidation information as well. So moving away from, like I said, the credit reports, we're at a point in time, this is live, you can view it. Then further to that, which is what I just touched on a little bit earlier on the task section, not only is the information available to you, but if it's information that's pertinent to a particular debtor, we would send it to you by means of a task that you can then go and action to someone in your team, and you can set due dates, etc. for it eventually, and it would then require action for them. So moving from literally just giving a report and you do it with it as you please, we're moving really to the point of let us monitor and administer your data for you and provide you the insights that you need to mitigate and manage your risk. Vani, Chris, any questions on the tasks before we move on to workflows?
So if there's anything additional we would like to add to the tasks, is that possible?
What kind of, do you have an example?
I think we've discussed this previously, where I was looking at customers becoming overdue, and then it gives say, for example, it will come up and say, one controller, you've got 10 customers that are due a friendly letter today. And then
Sorry, go ahead, Ron.
So is it possible for that to be added on? Because I think that's where you haven't gotten yet, but you were looking into it. So those letters will automatically come up with the overdue amount, and the controller will be linked to an email to send it out, or go out automatically if she says process.
So there's two things. There's two parts of that currently, Ronnie. The one is getting a notification.
Yes.
So if someone says the debt is over limit and the debt is overdue, for example, those are types that we've already got built into our system.
Okay.
And next, so definitely, and if we've got the control information, your controller would be able to then see what's specific to them based on who their debtors are, and should be able to see, for example, if someone's exceeded their credit limit. So here's an example it's given us. It says Salt Hills Blue Bottle Liquor, their credit limit has been exceeded. So if we go and click on view, it should take us to that particular debtor, and we should be able to see that they're trading over their limit, which they are. So their limit is 100,000. They're trading at 117,000. So that's an example of someone that's trading over their limit.
Okay.
In terms of the automation of that, of sending the email, it is something that we are looking at building. It's not something that's currently available.
Mm-hmm.
I think Vali also, I mean, because I've had quite an extensive conversation with on this side. You know, like I said, we can, I mean, in essence, and I think that this is, you know, this is quite critical, is if we provide you with the, you know, even if it's on a daily basis or whatever it is with the debtors that are overdue, right, and we can then initiate a workflow to send off a reminder email. Right. So in other words, it's that still kind of need to go through and you know, and understand which debtors need to be sent, but we can initiate that workflow, which would obviously be you know, which would obviously be an email that could get sent through. What information would you need to be in that particular mail? Would it be sufficient to send off a generic you know, generic mail on 2 days overdue? I remember, I think you said it was 2 days overdue and 4 days overdue.
Yeah. Actually not, because we would prefer for the customer's invoice number and the actual amount that's overdue, because it could be, if it's a COD account, say a 7-day account, different invoices become payable on different days. So I cannot just send a generic. I need to make sure that I'm specifying which amount is overdue, because he might have taken an order yesterday and one became due today, and you know, it overlaps. So it has to be specific. And then if it's a final demand as well, we need to be able to give them an exact amount that is due.
So my understanding is then in order for us to be able to do that is, you know, we need invoice level information. So you know, as invoices are issued, credit notes are issued, that information will have to flow into our system in order for us to say, right, this particular invoice was supposed to be paid on this date. 5 days have since passed since it's been paid, and therefore an automated email needs to go out to the client to say, Mr. Client, you're now overdue. Please, can you remit payment on this particular invoice, and perhaps even attach the invoice. Is my understanding correct, Ron?
That's correct. Yes.
Do you guys currently use a system for that, or is it completely manual?
At the moment, it's manual. So we would pull out the age. We would look at a COD age. See anything overdue, then go into the account. Well, there's all the letters are basically drafted. The ladies just populate with the customer details, account number, invoice amount, and invoice number. Yeah. And then they would email it out individually.
Yeah. Look, that is not functionality that, you know, on an invoice level that we're looking at building immediately.
You don't need the invoice to go out immediately, but we need the invoice number to be on the letter.
Mm-hmm. Okay, look, I know that Yoel has mentioned it. I think there's just a further discussion internally that we've just got to have, just to put some timings around, you know, what the possibility of that would be. What I don't want to do is comment on the call and tell you, definitely, Lonnie, we can definitely do that in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or a month, whatever the case is. And you know, it's definitely, it's not on business's radar to do that. But we can definitely engage on that. I've made a note of it, and it is something that we can have further discussions, you know, on. If that's something that, you know, is an absolute must for you, then it's something that we can, like I said, we can scope in and put a project plan together. But if not, then it's something that we can look at building out for you. So, you know, perhaps we look at the platform for now with the alerts, etc., and giving you as much information as we can. Then, you know, we have to also go that route. So I think it's just a couple of further discussions that we just need to unpack on our side and then further with you.
Yeah, that would be great, because the whole idea for me is to streamline everything that we're currently doing and try and eliminate as much manual work that the ladies are putting in. So, I mean, I can pull out the age and I'll be able to know, you know, they have 10 customers to call today. And it's the same thing if I open your task and they give me the list of those customers. The same, I can do that on Zap. I can pull it out. Yes. But if it can eliminate the manual intervention, that would be great, because I think that would be like a number 1 for us, because that's what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, fine. Point taken. Completely understood. You know, I know we've had some internal discussions around this, but it's just something that we just need to flesh out a little bit more.
Okay, perfect.
Right. So then, moving on then from the tasks is the workflow section. So currently, do you guys have a lot new debtors that you onboard on a monthly basis, or is it mostly just reviews that you guys do?
We do have a lot, but however, a lot of them belong to grocers. So those are not like in-depth, application process. They do an opening letter and liquor license. And that's how we open the grocers. For example, like your ShopRites and spas and that sort of thing. The rest of them would be like your blue bottles, your overland. So we do get a fair amount in that comes in.
Is that currently a manual process on your side, or is it digitized and automated at any point?
At the moment, not digitized, not on the website. So the application goes out with probably the sales rep, or they would call in for a copy. We would give them a pack, and then they would complete and send it back to us via email.
Okay, so I mean, this is another thing on our platform that we've done is we take your credit application and we take that process and we digitize it.
Yeah.
So what you currently see is you'd be able to see a credit application, and so basically because we've got information to subsidy and we've got that link to them, is if your subject kicks off the application, or whether one of your sales guys does it, they put in a registration name, it pulls through and pre-populates a credit application, and then there's certain things that based on your credit policy that they may need to attach. So, maybe anything over 100,000, you need financials as an example. And then we can build that into the workflow. So it's a completely digitized your credit application with various levels of approval. For example, maybe, again, anything up to 100,000, you can approve. Anything thereafter has got to go to Chris, and then all that gets built in, as well as them able to sign digitally using an OTP. As well as in verification of who's signing, because we're verifying that information against Subsea's database. So that's the one workflow which I think could add value to you guys. The second then is the limit review workflow. If you're looking at increasing someone's limit, and again, your credit policy says that above a certain amount, you need to get financials and or bank statements and or an updated liquor license, that will then be built in. So you could potentially have 3, which would be a new credit application. It would be a limit review, and it could be, your annual liquor license request, a workflow that will go out and request that liquor license and then store it for you when it does come back. Bonnie?
Sorry, say that again.
Sure. So I was just saying that we could build, the way I say it, 3 different workflows for you. The one would be new onboarding of a new customer, where they'd have to provide a liquor license, etc. And based on what your credit policy says, they have to attach certain documentation and go through different levels of approval on your side. And built into that is the vetting process on our side. Now, it's because access to all of the information that you would ordinarily use to make a decision, we build that into the process. So again, it'll give you a limit recommendation at the end. So they've applied for 80 grand. We'll tell you, what, they're actually good for 120, or actually they're not good for 80. Start them off on 40 and then see how they grow from there. The same with the limit review. We'd be able to then kick off a limit review workflow, which would then go and get documents should you require it. And the third type of workflow that we could build for you is a workflow that would go out and request from your debtors an updated liquor license. So again, you'd go and you'd initiate it, your credit controllers would initiate it, and it would automatically send out a mail to them and ask them to provide their latest updated liquor license, which would then come back into the system, and you'd be able to store it somewhere or against the client so that you have access to it.
Yeah, that would be great, because I think that's what Chris mentioned earlier, is that liquor license review, the updated one. But just on a question on the credit limit, the first section, you guys do the vetting in the background. So if we receive the document via email, do we just scan it back into your system, or do we have to capture the whole application again on?
So currently you'd be able to go and open the workflow to where it is, and you'd be able to attach it through that process. So basically, it won't be that you have to initiate the entire process all over again. You have your workflow overview that you'd be able to go and kick off and see all of the workflows that have been kicked off, and you'd be able to go into that workflow and attach it, in that process. Alternatively, what would happen is you wouldn't even have to do it, because all of this would be done by your subject or by whoever's initiating the application. So your client would know immediately as part of the application requirements that they need certain pieces of information or certain documentation. They would then attach all of that. And you, at any point in time, you can see exactly where that application is stuck. Perhaps they're stuck on bank statements or they're stuck on financials, and it gives you that kind of granularity to be able to then reach out to your customer. You can say, listen, Mr. Customer, I see that you're stuck on financials or bank statements. Is there something that I can help you with, or is there an issue? So that your sales guys are constantly in the loop of what's happening, and they can then follow up with their customers to get that application through.
Okay. May I ask, will customers be able to log in and update or capture the details for the credit app?
So they won't be able to log in, but what they do get is they'll get an email with the link to the application.
Okay.
At any point, they'd be able to then go into that application and complete it.
Okay.
It does automatically save. So if they fill in something and let's say they get hit by load shedding, they don't have to go back and start the application all over again. It would have saved at each, at the end of each input that they've put in to that application.
Okay, that's perfect.
I mean, if you'd want us to go through what a credit application, a generic credit application looks like, I mean, we can do that. I know Yanela is in the call, perhaps Yanela can take us through one. Alternatively, if time commitments are an issue, we've only got just over 10 minutes left. We can set up a separate session and take you through what that application process looks like. I think it would add a lot of value for you and Chris to see that. Just so that you can see, one, how quick that process does, make it now. Depending on the question that you ask, the process can take anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. And then once the information is completed and sent through to us, through the application, you get a decision anywhere from 30 seconds up to 30 minutes. Our aim is to have 70% of all applications processed within 30 minutes, but a lot of those go through a lot quicker, as long as the subject, which is whoever's applying for it, has provided all of the information and documentation.
Rahil, I think it would probably be valuable, I think, for Yanela to take you through that process. Also to see that Victor has got a question, I think, that he wanted to ask there.
Yeah, thanks, Yoli. Vani, actually, this one's more on what you were touching around. I just wanted to get an idea of how often in terms of numbers maybe, how often you deal with having to increase or review a customer's limit, like maybe on a weekly or monthly basis, if you could give me a guess. Like how frequent?
So customers can be reviewed daily if necessary, depending on their buying pattern. However, we do an annual credit limit assessment across the book to ensure that those that need to be increased are increased and those reduced are reduced. However, so some customers may have a higher buying pattern in this month and the credit limit may not be sufficient, so we will do one now. So all depending on the orders that are coming in. So if I tell you maybe on a daily basis, we might assess, but that would be probably 5 or 10 of them on a day.
Okay, no, I think that gives me a better picture. And from a new customer's point of view, like what numbers are we looking at every month? Like if you're just a guess.
As a new customer, opening new customer?
Yes, opening new customer accounts.
I think I have said that through, but I would say it can be anything between 30 to 50 customers, depending. Like I said, a lot of them are grocers. So I can't really say it's a new customer, it's just a new store opening.
Okay, no, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, would you like us to take you through the credit application process now, Chris, Vani, if you've got the time?
I actually have another meeting after this, so I don't know, Chris.
Well, if it's only going to take us 5 minutes, let's have a look at it.
Okay.
Sure. Okay, so Yanela, if you don't mind, if you can share on your side, I think everyone's got a meeting in the next 10 minutes, so if you can go through it. One, it'll show us how quick the application process is, and it'll give us the time to actually test it. So I'll start presenting on my side.
Okay.
Whilst Yanela's just getting it open on his side, what I just wanted to actually just mention very quickly, if I may, actually, let me just reshare. give me a second, is the performance section for you, Chris. This is basically, it gives you a view of your entire debtors book based on the latest aging that we've got. You'll be able to see, how much is overdue, how many customers, how much debt is over the credit limit, etc. These are live. You have a couple of quick filters that you can go and see overdues by high payment risk or overdue or over limit by high payment risk. Well, you as well, Vani, because then you'd be able to export this for your team. So the risk view, again, it gives you your high risk or low risk debtors. That looks good on your side. It seems like this green bar, that's your medium payment risk debtors. So, it is quite low. And my screen just disappeared. And then your debtors export, again, you can go in and filter out by your debtors to grow, your debtors to reduce, your exposure in 120 days plus, your top 20 overdue accounts, and you then export that, send that off for your team. So, these are quite informative management reports that you can use to actually manage and mitigate the risk in your business.
These are current dashboards at the moment, but it's done manually.
Okay.
So this is based on the data that we've submitted, John?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Okay, over to you, Yanela.
Okay, thanks, Rahil. Sorry, you didn't see that you were still sharing there. My apologies. All right, cool. Just confirm if you guys can see my screen.
Yep, can.
All right, cool. So I will just quickly do a recap of what Rahil mentioned regarding the kicking off the workflow, the credit application from your side. So Vani, this is obviously the landing page where your salesperson or whoever will be kicking off this workflow will have on the system. So there's two options here that we can use. It's either you can go straight to the workflow session. If you click start on the workflow session, now you will be able to see the different workflows that have been configured for your company. So we're gonna look at the credit application workflow, how you will be able to initiate that one and kick it off. So the first option is to click on start. Now, once you click on start, it immediately takes you to our backup application, which is Fabric, where that specific workflow is configured. So here you will be able to search by the company name or the sole prop. So depending whether you guys are also dealing with sole props and the trust, but you will be able to search for the sole prop or the trust using their identification number. Or if you are looking for the company to onboard, you will just select the company and you can use the company name, the company registration number, or the VAT number.
Thanks, Janela. Sorry, Janela, just in the interest of time for everyone on the call, perhaps we can just go through one very quickly and then just kick one off. And then, if Vani and Chris want to, at a later stage, have a full walkthrough as to what the entire process is end to end, we can do that. So I just think if we can just very quickly just show them how it will work.
Okay, cool, no problem.
Yeah.
So I'll just show them. Okay, I'll just select this company now.
Yeah, so while Yanela is doing that, you see he is basically search for the company. Here he'll just pull in the full name or the name, the email address, and the contact number for whoever it is at the company that is going to complete the application.
Okay.
Actually,
and you can see it's already been pre-populated with information. So the company name, the VAT number, the registration number, the status, that's all being pre-populated. And what you see, there's a company Knox ID. That's just an internal ID on our side that we use to track this particular company through our database.
Okay.
okay.
And I think you could also just put in yours there, right? And just okay.
Yeah, I'll just put the one that will go through.
That we use to scrape account with.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the payment terms that can be selected. And then the credit limit. And then it will show the report.
Okay, now what's happening is it's busy creating the email that will go through to the subject.
Yeah. So for the purpose of this demonstration, I'll just pull through from that Gmail account that I created. So just see, just waiting for that email.
Okay.
Okay, can you see?
This is the email that your customer will get. It would be white label, so it wouldn't say the big Inoxico fabric at the top. It'll be white labeled with your company details, your company colors, everything that they would, that it would look like it came from your company.
So this the results go directly to the customer.
Yes, so that would go directly to the customer, yes.
The initial.
Sorry.
The initial application actually runs through a pre-vetting, if I'm not mistaken. Am I right there, Yanela?
Yeah, so this is not going to the customer as yet.
Yeah, so there's an initial pre-vetting process essentially that gets done. So typically what would happen is your sales team would initiate that application, Evani.
Yeah.
Right. And then once that application has been initiated, your credit team would probably come to you. Would that first email would come back to you with with the knockout rules as to whether or not that company has passed those rules. So in other words, is the company in a valid business status, etc. And then once that email has come back through to you, which I think you'll be able to see now, you'd actually see, okay, all the knockout rules have been passed.
Yeah.
At which point you would then approve that credit application, and that would trigger an email directly to the customer.
Okay, now I understand.
So the first part is that that email comes through to you, right, saying that an application has been initiated, right. Obviously, the knockout rules, those basic pre-vetting process would then get processed, and then you'd obviously be able to then initiate it. After which case, it then go directly to the customer. Yanela, are you?
Sorry, I just need to. I think I got kicked off there. I just need to.
No problem.
Yeah. Okay. So. Yeah,
so this is that response, Vani, from that initial. So that application was kicked off, right? It goes through that initial pre-sales vetting process, and then you would get an application, and you would be able to then trigger it directly to the subject.
Correct. Yeah, apologies for that. Yeah, so these are the risk checks that we can build in based on your credit policy. So let's say you don't want to even do business with someone that's been trading for less than 12 months, or one of the risk checks we'll add in for you is they don't have a valid liquor license, as an example. So that would be one of the risk checks. And so then once it's done internally, then you click on the submit application at the bottom right hand side. And now it's at this point that it will then go off to the subject, or to the person that's going to complete the application.
Okay.
Yanela, do you want to do that quickly? And now it's been submitted. So now in their email, they would then get the email with the application. So there it is, that's at the top. And they would click the complete application. It will now open it up, the application or the questionnaire on their side. So now you see it says, good morning, it gives them the information. It says, please confirm that this is your business. So that's the first thing that you would do, and you would say yes.
Yeah.
Next. And you would then have to provide consent. You'd be able to view the consent details, but they would have to provide consent. And in your privacy policy, would also be in there as well. They would then confirm the credit limit. So you go next. If financial information is needed to be attached, so such as bank statements or financials, they would attach it here at this step. Sorry, we've only now just started the customer process. We can see how quickly this goes. Okay.
And this is also where you guys would, if it was a requirement to get a liquor license, we would obviously build this into the workflow for you as well.
Okay.
They'll put in the addresses, any securities, etc. If it's required. We generally try to keep it as low as possible.
So this is like a deed of surety. They can also download and upload it once they've signed it. So yeah, so they can download it and then upload it again once it's completed. This is the question. I'll just say owned so that it doesn't populate more details. But you can, if it's populating more details, you will see there's more information that is required by the application on the application side.
Okay.
Banking details.
Remember, Vani, whilst Yanela is completing this, all of the information, all of this can be tailored to your credit policy. So, bank details, for example, if you may not even need them, you may not even need securities, etc. It won't even be in here at all. The system now, because of the checks that have been built in, it's just making it's telling us that something's been filled in incorrectly.
Yeah, let's just see.
So I think what's happening is the lease. So just go back down quickly to the leased information.
Okay, so let's see. There's additional information required. Next.
Yeah, and have you agreed to Yanela, there's an initial consent tick box in there.
Yeah, it has been ticked.
On the next again,
Yanela,
Yeah.
in that additional information section, where you chose owned versus leased?
Yeah.
When you toggle between the two, it triggered the validation on the lease. So just go back and choose the leased, and then you'll be fine.
Oh, okay, cool. So at least.
Yeah, there you go.
Now, okay, now we need to look at that. Okay, I see. So now it just needs us to pull the details of this. Okay. This. Okay, thanks, Vic. Now this is the terms and conditions. They can view them, read the terms and conditions.
Terms and conditions that you provided us with, Vani.
Yes, I see that.
Yeah. And accept the terms and conditions. And then here, this is where it pulls all the directors for this specific company. If this person is not the director, they can also select other, and then they can just put in their details, but they will need to provide the board resolution if they are not one of the directors.
Basically, what this does is if they're one of the directors, they select who they are, they upload their ID copy, and then they sign it. And then if they're not one of the directors, they can still sign it. However, they do need to upload a board resolution there, confirming that they are in fact authorized to sign.
Yes.
So in this case, now you can see now it's asked for an OTP. So this is where the OTP will be sent to the customer's account, and they will need to put in that OTP in order to complete the application. And that's one of the security measures that's been built in. And as you can see now, this process is going to go submit. It'll then get submitted off. Even with the glitches that we had with the lease, it basically took us 4 minutes to complete. And now if you go back to the Gmail, basically the application would come back to you, to your company, and you would then be able to review, decline, or approve it based on whatever's being sent over to you.
Okay. That's pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The report hasn't come through yet, so I mean, I think I would also be interested in that to have a look how the report comes back.
Yeah, so this process, unfortunately, this part of the email, it might take just a minute or
Sure.
a minute
Yeah.
because it does a background check. So
Yeah.
in a normal in a normal environment, it goes and do the background check, and then it will give you some score in terms of what is the expert score and the quick score for that specific customer. Then you will be able to see to view those details and make a decision based on the score that was provided by Inoxico.
May I ask, once this report comes back, so maybe Yoel, if you could just pop it back to us so we can view it?
Yeah, sure. I think, I mean, obviously, in the for the sake of the demo, I think obviously the documents that we've uploaded are obviously fictitious.
Yes,
So,
I just want to have a look at the breakdown.
100% for pleasure,
Yeah.
not a problem at all. Barney, I think, can I ask you a favor as well? I mean, just in terms of like just ironing out the details about those reminder letters, would you be able to send me just a template of what one of those letters looks like?
Yeah.
I mean, you can kind of take out any sensitive information, but just so that I've got an idea, so that we can start also just engaging with the development team and seeing how that might be possible as well.
Sure, no problem. I will send them to you sometime in the day today, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's perfect. No problem.
Awesome. And then as soon as we get this back, we will.
I'll send it through what the report comes back to you guys looking like as well.
Yeah. Excellent.
All right.
Barney, Chris, any further questions on your side?
Nothing from our side, thank you.
No, what you showed me, no, thank you. There are no further questions.
Excellent. Cool. Thanks a lot, Barney and Chris. Look, we will forward to you that report as soon as it does come through. Like I said, it takes anywhere from 30 seconds up to 30 minutes, depending on the validation checks. But yeah, thanks for your time. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to Yoeli or to any one of us. Have a great day further.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Thanks, Barney. I'll be in touch with you in the next early next week, and we can just just discuss and take the get your feedback and what we require going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
All right.
Thanks.
Ciao.
Cheers.
Guys.